Hey gun people, this is a little legal. I was working on my search warrant for Google or YouTube, and I'm not sure if I would serve that on Google or YouTube. I bet you YouTube has their own legal department. So I was searching to find out Google's address to serve. I'm not doing a warrant. I'm just making a template for a warrant in case other people do warrant requests or subpoena requests to Google or YouTube. So as I'm looking for this guy came up, and I don't know if he's a lawyer or not. He's got law books behind him, and he dresses like a lawyer, but he doesn't say he's a lawyer. And I don't know him. But he did a pretty good video. If you want to watch the whole video, it's Google search warrant, geofencing and privacy. So geofencing is a term used by, I guess, tech people for if I want to find out everyone in a certain area, I can put parameters of a geofence and tell the tracking companies that I want to know every cell phone in a 2-block area. Or there was a crime that happened at the corner of A and B Street. So therefore, or, you know, A and Elm Street, because number streets usually run the same way and trees run the same way. So A and Elm. So I want to set up a 4-block radius of seeing every cell phone in that area between the time of the crime. And when I do that, the company, YouTube, Google, who, you know, Android, whoever the hell, AT&T service, whatever, they will show every signal of every phone checking every tower. And that's an issue with me. Oh, evidently he has it says a professor of law. So maybe he's a law school professor. And most law school professors weren't practicing attorneys, but maybe they were. I don't know. Most college professors never did what the hell they're teaching. But, you know, he may have went out there for a year or two. I'm not trying to disparage this guy and say he knows. He does a good video, and he explains the importance of writing warrants with specificity about what is to be searched and the things to be seized. Now, his view on this is more liberally interpreted the Constitution than I am. I think this is a geofence, is an unlawful search and seizure in my book. But it is reasonable, and that's kind of what he gets into. Okay, in this part of the video, he talks about everybody uses a smartphone, and we don't use maps, and we're always trying to get what's closest, what easier. They make our life easier, and most people use them. But we give up privacy. But that doesn't mean, in my opinion, that the government should abuse that because we use something that makes our lives easier. Therefore, the government gets to spy and get information and unlawfully seize our information and spy on us. See, that's the difference between a true conservative constitutionalist and somebody who's like, well, you know, the state has to be able to, and we have to protect the state, and the state's there to help you, and the state would never abuse that authority, and the state has to be given some leeway, and, you know, there's all these excuses to erode freedom when you get into, it's just a little bit. This is just a little, this is trimming off a little fat off the Constitution, so it's okay. I think it's bullshit.
To give you that information. But did you know that Google and other companies keep track of that information? And will provide that information to the police when they are required to do so by law?
They will do it not only when they're not required. In order to get protection from being sued, see, these companies, in order to do business, you have to agree, and your licensing and part of your ability to operate and get government license and get their permission to run a business, which is government intrusion, but we won't go there. The fact that they have to give you permission, they put these little precursors in there that says, if we give you this license, you must do A, B, and C. And one of those A, B, C, X, Y, Z, 1,400 million things are when the government requests information from you with a warrant, you must give it to them. And because we're requiring you to give it to them, you are not liable to be sued, and you aren't held criminally or civilly liable for giving us that information. So we give you protections, kind of like they gave Google and Facebook protections to where now they can censor shit they don't like under the ruse of they're keeping you safe, but they still have that government protection that you can't go after them. That's what they do to these companies. We'll let you operate and run your business, but if we send you a warrant, you got to give us what we ask for. And if you don't, we'll pull your license. You can't do business. So part of doing business is you got to have a staff of people willing to work. Google, I think, gets like 200 warrants a week from cops, from different agencies. That's a huge amount of manpower searching, looking, gathering information, turning it back in a timely manner, keeping it secret, documenting, holding, storing that. Later, they'll be called to testify in court. Doing, you got this? Is this true and correct? Is this what you brought? So, I mean, that's a huge amount of money and time that businesses have to suck up because government says, tough shit. You want to do business? You pay us our VIC. On top of that, we're going to tax your ass every time you make a profit. We're going to tax you every time you sell something. And we're going to tax you every time you turn around. And we're going to raise your licensability. And we're going to make new licenses. And we're going to make new requirements. And if you want to do business, you'll comply. So it's just a huge... That's why I just wish people would understand how intrusive government is in our lives, even when you go out there and try to make a living. But you can't tell that now because they pretty much cut that out of the government-run schools, programming every idiot to think that government is good and more government is more gooder. All right, here we go.
Because our smartphones leave traces, let's explore how and when the police can get a warrant to force Google to provide your location to them.
They don't have to force them. I mean, it's a court order. They have to comply, or they are in contempt of court and they have to go to court and prove why they're not complying. But the government tells them that if you do comply, don't worry about it. You're not going to be sued. But guess what? The government doesn't pay you for time, the people you hire, the record keeping, the validity, the time you lose when you have to go to court and they subpoena you. They don't give you money for all that crap.
A geofence is a geographic area around a specified location, with Google being able to pinpoint a device within 20 meters or about 65 feet.
So Google knows where you are within 65 feet. So when you use a smartphone in other countries that we think we need to be there and be the world police, and we get your cell phone and we know where you're at, we can drop a bomb. As long as the bomb has a kill radius of 65 feet, we're pretty sure we're going to get you. And there might be a little collateral damage, but that's just kind of the price of freedom. Yeah, that's what we're told.
In one case, the police obtained a warrant ordering Google to provide them with the identity of every device within 150 meters or about 500 feet of a bank robbery location.
Okay, this is not a warrant with specificity. This is a huge issue. This is called a net warrant. This is why the Fourth Amendment was actually put in the Constitution, because the Army, and I think he covers that, they were so ruthless. I mean, they could quarter in your house. The Stamp Act allowed them to come in and take over your house. They could eat your crop. They could take food to feed the army. They could do anything. They could search your house. They didn't need a warrant. They could have searched. And I think in the UK, I think there are cops or detectives that actually have that same thing on their ID card. It says, this guy can search you for any reason and you can't deny. Somebody told me numerous times that the UK cops don't need warrants. They're allowed to search when they want. Or maybe it's Australia, or somebody over there can clear that up.
From 4:20 p.m. to 5:20 p.m. This was during rush hour. This request not only captured data from those at the bank, but also from devices at a restaurant, 2 apartment complexes, a hotel, a mini storage, and a large church.
So all these people's information that were provided, they were unlawfully searched. The government seized, when you do a search warrant, you're seizing evidence. The government seized your information. Now, this lawyer, this law professor who's teaching other lawyers how to subvert the Constitution, he is saying that it's okay because they didn't identify your name. They only identified your phone number or your phone ISN or whatever he tries to justify this. That's bullshit. These people who had their information provided to government, their location and their cell phone information was unlawfully searched and seized by the government. Their information was seized, their phone was searched, their number was seized by the government, and now the government has that information. But Rick, as the law professor said, they didn't use it to identify the people. They only used it to narrow it down and to find the bad guy, and it's good, and they protect. That's bullshit. People, this is the incremental intrusion that I'm always talking about government. Government is around for eternity, okay? As long as they're a government, they will always grow inch by inch by inch. And it may take them 10, it may take them 20 years, it may take them 50 years. Guess what? They're going to be around. They don't care. The people that enacted a law won't care. The people that enforce it won't care. And the people in the future that add to it won't care. It just continues to grow. Limited government was the cornerstone of our freaking country becoming a country because we saw what tyrannical government power could do across the world, no matter where you were at. We were the social experiment of the ages where freedom and people control the government. And government didn't have ultimate power over the people. The people had power over the government. This is the only place that happens. And you got these freaking left-wing idiots coming here destroying this country, telling you more government is gooder. And then next thing you know, we're going to be just like the rest of the shitholes in this country, and everything that our founders gave up to start this country will be for nothing. Just sickening. But anyway, let's get back to this warrant.
Across the street. And how about the busy road reality of the warrant ordering Google to provide this information? Before I go any further, let me note that Google has publicly stated that they will follow the law. And
Google will follow the law because the law protects them. They get 302 or 30, whatever it is, protection. Of course they're going to follow the law. They don't want to lose that protection. But with that protection comes benefit to do what the hell they want. They don't have to be held accountable by the people. They only have to be held accountable by the government. And the government is so damn incompetent, huge in bureaucracy, nobody holds the government accountable. How the hell are they got? The only way the government holds Google accountable is they want more money. More money, more donations to my campaign.
To my knowledge, they have provided this kind of information only when ordered to do so by a court of law.
Oh, see this guy, you can tell this guy's a left-wing lawyer. He's standing up for government, big Google, big government that protects you and needs this information only to help you and to keep you safe.
One Google employee noted that they get nearly 200 warrants a week. Action is restrained by the Fourth Amendment to the Constitution, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrant shall issue but upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation.
Okay, so oath or affirmation is a signed sworn warrant. When I do a search warrant, I have to swear that it's true in front of a judge. He gives me an oath. It's covered under perjury, and the judge signs it. Now it becomes an official court order, and you must comply. And the reason why our founders put that in a constitution is because the damn redcoats didn't have to do that, and no other government. Do you think in China they have to go ask permission to search a pesky citizen? Do you think in North Korea they have to ask permission to violate a citizen's privacy? Of course not. That's why our Constitution was there. And you idiots on the left keep wanting more government, more controls, more regulation. Yeah, let's give it to government. They'll fix all the problems with the world because they're smarter than us. They're better. They have power. They can put you in jail. Yeah, let's give all the power, guns, and ability to protect us to government. Freaking just crazy.
And particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or thing to be seized.
That's specifically in the Fourth Amendment, that you have to describe the place and the person and things to be seized. And that's why it's critical. That's why I can't do what we call blanket warrants. He's calling it nice. Well, it's a geofencing, and they're not getting names. They're only getting numbers. That's bullshit. They are doing a blanket warrant over an area. It would be no difference than if government stormed in to a complete block because they suspected someone, we don't know who, just someone, of committing a crime. Therefore, we're going to seal off the block and search every home and every person because we're looking for the person that probably might be, maybe if and buts and coconuts, might be committing a crime. Therefore, we're going to search everybody and violate it. That's the whole purpose of the Fourth Amendment. And now, with Google and the government slowly and all the idiots thinking this is okay, it's just one more little inch to where later we don't need to do that. It'll be normal common practice. Hey, you know what? If you use a cell phone, you give up your privacy. Pretty soon the government will require phone companies to put in their contracts that by using this phone and accepting the terms and conditions, you allow government. It's just like being on parole or probation. When you're on probation, you have to say, hey, Any cop can search me anytime without probable cause. You give up your Fourth Amendment right to privacy when you're on parole or probation. And pretty soon, that's what every pesky citizen will have to sign in order to use a cell phone, to get on the internet, to use a computer, to drive somewhere, to get on a public road, to put your kids in a public school. You must give up all your privacy rights. Yeah, that'll be great. Man, it's going to be so cool when the government takes over everything. Everything will be free and they'll take care of us. Wow, I just can't wait.
Seized. The writers of the U.S. Constitution were concerned with the abuses they experienced by the
They weren't concerned. They were damn well putting it in there saying, look, we need to stop this shit because we know how government will do.
British before the War of Independence. The concern animating the Fourth Amendment was the use of general warrants by the British authorities.
Now, watch this lawyer sell this as a geofence is not really a general warrant because it's reasonable. Watch this double talk. I got to speed this guy up because he's a little slow. Rick, you talk too fast. Shut up, you big dummy.
Authorities. The British would issue a general warrant, also called a writ of assistance, to an official charged with enforcing the laws. The warrant could then be used to search any place, anyone, at any time, without suspicion.
What the hell is a geofence, people? The government says, give me every cell phone in this large area. I don't know who owns it. I don't know if they're committing a crime. They may not even be committing a crime. But I want you to provide me with all this information on their cell phone. And make no mistake about it. This lawyer doesn't want to say it. Your ISN number, your phone number, your signal that you're sending is absolutely identification of who you are. He's trying to make it seem like it isn't. It damn well is. I can find out anything I want from you by getting your cell phone information.
Of wrongdoing and without payment for damages caused in the search. The general warrant is viewed as a significant contributing cause to the American Revolution. And
yeah, they were searching for the Stamp Act. They were searching to see if you're paying your taxes. They would walk into your house and assault your women or search or tear through your house or destroy your property and then leave. Shoot your animals, feed on your animals, steal your crops. And they would do all that. But Rick, the redcoats were good. They were government. And they were here to... There were freaking idiots back there when the American Revolution happened that were saying the redcoats was good. And they protected us. And they had guns. And they kept law and order. And we needed them. Guess what? Guess what? How did that shit work out?
The reason why the Fourth Amendment has specific requirement as to when a warrant can be issued. So in the United States, general warrants are unconstitutional and illegal.
Okay, you hear what he said? He's a law professor. General warrants are unconstitutional and illegal. But he says a geofence warrant is okay. Unfreaking believable.
This brings us back to our initial question. Is a warrant ordering Google to provide geofence information a general warrant and therefore illegal? Now, if the government were to get names and addresses of all Google devices using geofence data, that would likely violate the Fourth Amendment because that looks a lot like a general warrant.
Really? If the government got names and addresses, then it would be against the Constitution. But because they're only getting numbers that specifically identify you, okay, then it's okay. Really? Is that what the founders had in mind when they said we need to stop government overreach and we need to keep government restrained from spying and getting in people's business when they haven't committed a crime? We need to stop government from being an harassment arm to where they can stop you for any reason and fine you and tax you without any just cause, kind of like cops do every day when they just pull you over to collect taxes by the government. You think that's what the founders had in mind? Well, oh, well, you know what? Yeah, for geofence, yeah, that'll be fine. We're okay with that. We just don't want you giving their names. Really? Are you a freaking idiot? Oh, I forgot. You're a law professor. Well, we can clear that shit up.
Geofence data, that would likely violate the Fourth Amendment because that looks a lot like a general warrant.
A geofence looks like a lot like a general warrant.
But the government has not been doing that.
Oh, look at him. He's protecting the government. Oh, I feel so much better. He's a law professor. He wouldn't give us false information. He would want to hold government accountable. Yay! Freaking idiots.
Going back to the bank robbery case, the government requested the data in a manner that protected the identities of the device owners.
How the hell is somebody given my ISN number that's specifically assigned to my phone, my account with my name and my address and my billing information? And how the hell is that not identifying information? This law professor saying that's anonymous? Are you freaking kidding me?
Google provided anonymous ID numbers instead of names, along with the geofence data. The police then looked at the data to reduce the number of potential suspects.
So we made everybody a suspect, we identified everybody, and now we're going to release them. I mean, people, can you imagine if the state of Texas goes, you know what, we got a lot of crime. But you know what, we don't want to impose on everybody. So we want the entire phone data for everybody in the state, and then we're going to narrow down the number of potential suspects. Because we're from the government and we're here to help. How the hell does that seem reasonable to a damn law professor?
Eventually, zeroing in on the person they eventually arrested, they found evidence of the bank robbery at that person's home.
Okay, here's the government plug. Wow, government did good. They didn't get our information and they used the warrant, and look, they caught the bad guy, so everything is good. May 1,000 guilty people go free than one innocent person go to jail. That's why we have a jury and unanimous decisions. And we don't want the government being in charge of everything because they abuse power. That's why the founders put the Constitution in. They didn't make the Second Amendment because of a hunting trip. They made the Second Amendment because they just freed a country from a tyrannical government, and they didn't want that to happen again. They made the Fourth Amendment so government couldn't gain power and harass the pesky citizens at will because they had power and money. And not only is the government doing it, they're doing it by making a private company spend their time and money to do it for them. Out freaking rages.
The government's legal argument relies on an ambiguity in the Fourth Amendment itself. Is the Fourth Amendment primarily concerned with unreasonable searches, or is it concerned with meeting the warrant requirement?
Okay, here's where I kind of agree with him a little bit. The Fourth Amendment is protect you, in my book, from unreasonable intrusion from the government. Now, there's a lot of case law out there to where, and I'm talking from a cop being in the courts and defending and writing warrants, not from a law professor type of thing. I'm talking from actual experience with the courts. There's case law that says if it was reasonable, if the intrusion is minimal, I'm not saying it's right, but if the intrusion is minimal, then the courts will say, well, you know what, we'll overlook that because it was so minimal. Kind of like DUI checkpoints. We're not really saying you're a criminal. We're just stopping your free movement. We're detaining you with government authority and guns, and we're forcing you to answer our questions, provide information. Even though you're not a suspect of any crime, we're just trying to keep you safe. And you have to provide all this information that can potentially be used against you to put you in jail and take away your freedoms, but you have no choice in the matter because if you refuse, then you will go to jail. Yeah, that's kind of the little gray area we're getting in here.
Chief Justice Rehnquist stated in Ohio versus Robinette that, quote, the touchstone of the Fourth Amendment is reasonableness. Reasonableness, in turn, is measured in objective terms by examining the totality of
the circumstances. Use that a lot. Cops use a lot. Courts use a lot. Everything. What did you know at the time that you acted? What didn't you know? You can't use that information to justify why you acted. So the courts will always rule, and I guarantee you in this geofencing, the way the court's going to rule is the people whose information, their numbers that were seized unlawfully, that they were intruded against by the government without their permission, without committing crime, without being a suspect, without a warrant, their intrusion was so minimal that they probably didn't even know about it. Therefore, it didn't impose any impact on their lives. Therefore, we find it reasonable. I guarantee you that is how the court will rule because that's the way they think, and it's bullshit. But that's my opinion, and I ain't a law professor, so whatever.
Circumstances, unquote. With this in mind, we now need to determine whether the police acted reasonably when using the geofence data from...
So, as long as you, basically what this guy's saying, as long as you act reasonably and you violate the Constitution, it's okay. It's only when you act unreasonably and violate the Constitution. Really? You're a freaking law professor?
Google. What is clear is that the police were careful to avoid exposing all 19 individuals to
How were they careful about exposing all 19 individuals? Do you think that they got the numbers and just let people go or crossed them off the suspect list because of their number? Of course not. They got the information on who was close and who was there, and then they did another warrant, what's called a piggyback warrant, on this original warrant saying, during a geofence, we have determined that 7 phones were in a suspected area of the crime at the time, and we would like their user information and their information on where they went after the crime and what their address and billing information. And that's how they contact this guy. They didn't just miraculously, like this guy's trying to point out, they really, personal scrutiny was not there, and they identified the bad guy and went to his house and caught him. Yay, government. Government is good, and they'll protect you, and you should trust them, and they would never violate the Constitution. If they do violate the Constitution, as long as it's reasonable, well, that's just trim a little fat off it. It'll be all right.
personal scrutiny. Using only anonymous data, they winnowed the potential suspects down, eventually identifying the one bank robber.
How did they whittle that down? I don't get it. Tell me how they whittled down without knowing names and without getting into other information. They whittled down from the numbers? What, they just freaking did a lottery and drew? I mean, how did they whittle it down? They whittled it down by identifying all those numbers to people. And then they saw who had the criminal record, who was on parole, who had criminal history. They accessed all your information, you just didn't know it. So that was reasonable because, it didn't inconvenience you. This is bullshit what this guy is saying, but unfortunately, he's right. That's probably how the courts will probably rule. That's how he sees it, and that's how dumbass with robes see it when you get to court. And I don't care if they're sitting on a Supreme Court or an appeals court or the federal court or a local court. They all think, well, you know what, in this case, a little government intrusion for the greater good. And we'll use that for public safety in the name of national security. All the keywords to steal freedom for government abuses. So I found this damn video looking for the address of Google and YouTube so I could write out my warrant. But anyway, maybe this guy has something good to say. I gave his channel, used in fair use. We'll end that there.